A crazy woman takes her husband to a secret cabin and chops off his private parts. After the unpredicted death of little Nick, his parents are struck with grief, both at different levels. They decide to visit their old cabin in the woods for a change. There, the husband discovers a dark truth about his wife, which leads him to make an escape plan. But the wife finds out and commits heinous acts to prevent the husband from leaving her. The film opens with an unnamed couple indulged in a steamy makeout session while their toddler, Nick, manages to climb up the window and jump out in the snow. Nick's tragic and unpredicted death brings the parents incurable grief. At Nick's funeral, his mother faints and falls to the ground. She's left bedridden in a hospital for over a month, where the doctors treat her as if she's suffering from a fatal disease. This doesn't sit right with the husband, who happens to be a psychiatrist, so he takes over the situation against his wife's will and brings her home. The day he brings her home, he receives Nick's autopsy reports in the letter, which he places in one of his coat's pockets and decides not to open it for now. The following night, the wife misjudges her silent husband and assumes Nick's death hasn't disturbed him. The wife also vents out about how her husband was never attached to her and Nick, which is why he didn't join them on a trip to Eden, their cabin in the woods, last summer. However, the husband stays silent and doesn't say anything to hurt her feelings. Newly exposed to trauma, the wife gets a panic attack when she sleeps that night. The husband gets her through the attack using the counting method to bring down her heavy breathing. After a quick shower in the bathroom, the husband makes a chart and asks the wife to fill it in with her fears, counting from minor to major. This results in the wife aggressively bashing her head against the toilet seat. The husband immediately pulls her out of the bathroom and lies her down on the bed. That night, whenever he tries to find out about the wife's fears, she switches the subject by forcefully making out with him. At last, the wife reveals that she fears nature and the woods outside their cabin. Up next, the husband gets the wife on a train to Eden, hoping to help overcome her major fears. On their way, he uses a hypnosis technique on the wife and gets her to imagine walking up to their cabin through the woods in order to prevent anxiety or panic upon arriving in real life. After the exercise, the couple gets off the train and journeys to the woods. Midway, the wife reacts to the blisters on her feet from walking and overreacts, but the husband politely calms her down. On their second stop point, the husband catches a glimpse of a female doe with a stillborn baby stuck inside her. This is a symbolic projection of one of the three beggars. The three beggars is a Serbian folklore that suggests that wisdom can be achieved through grief, pain, and despair. In closing the first chapter, grief, the husband reunites with his wife at a bridge that's near their cabin. There, the wife fears crossing the bridge, but with the husband's encouragement, she successfully runs off to the other end. The subsequent night, the husband is woken up by a sudden acorn shower above their cabin. The wife claims it to be normal, as it also happened during her last visit in the summer. As he goes back to sleep, one of his hands slips out of the window. Upon waking up the next morning, he finds a good number of blood-suckling ticks attached to his hands. He dreadfully shakes them off and goes outside. Moments later, the wife joins her husband outside, who has arranged a new exercise for her to be able to walk on the grass without fearing it. After the exercise, the wife cries her heart out, as if she's guilty of something. As time progresses, the wife's condition worsens beyond the husband's imagination. During the therapy session, she opens up about her past experiences in the cabin. In one of her confessions, she claims that she heard Nick's cries coming from the woods. She ran around and looked everywhere as the cries got louder. Failing to find Nick in the woods, she came back to the cabin, where she found Nick calmly playing. Hearing the wife's confession, the husband reevaluates his analysis, claiming that Eden is only a means that triggers the wife's fears, whereas her real fear still remains a mystery. In addition to that, the husband claims that the crying sounds she heard were not real, which ends up pushing the wife's buttons. Not feeling validated, the wife wildly attacks the husband and sets a narrative in her mind that her husband is somewhat arrogant and cannot judge her right. The husband pins her down on the floor and relaxes her. That night, before sleeping, the wife tries to justify the scream she heard in the woods last summer as real. She boldly claims that she can hear the screams of those who are dying, hinting that she heard the cries of her son, who was close to death. The husband straight up disapproves of this and tries to tell her she's only mentally going through stuff. Disappointed, the wife switches the subject and refers to nature as Satan's church, implying that it's corrupt and impure. While the husband tries to correct her, acorns fall into the kitchen sink from the opened window, so he runs to close it. There, he takes out the fear chart and writes Satan as the wife's major fear, but then cancels it out. The next morning, the husband finds Nick's autopsy report in his coat's pocket, which reveals an entirely new mystery. The revelation leads him to imagine him standing still under the heavy acorn shower. This shows that the pain he's experiencing from the acorns falling over him is nothing compared to what he's feeling now. Soon, the wife joins her husband in a jolly mood on the front porch. The self-centered wife doesn't note her husband's weary mood and announces that she's suddenly cured of all the traumas. The wife takes the husband to the woods and fearlessly revisits all the spots that once used to scare her. When she notes that her husband isn't emitting the same excitement as hers, she leaves in disappointment. Left behind, the husband comes across a disemboweled fox that says, "Chaos reigns." This projects the second bagar, pain, which also encloses the second chapter of the film. Opening the third chapter, despair, the husband runs back to his cabin due to the unpredicted rain. There, he notices some holes in the ceilings and decides to climb up the attic to seal them. In the attic, he finds some violent pictures pasted on the walls that show genocide. He then reads his wife's thesis on genocide, an assignment she came to complete in the cabin last summer with Nick. The husband gets shocked when he finds the thesis to be supporting genocide instead of disapproving of it. This makes him believe that his wife is evil and not mentally ill. However, he sets aside how he feels and joins his wife for a final exercise in which they role-play. The husband plays the role of all the gruesome thoughts that trigger the wife's fears and asks his wife to play as the rational thinker. This exercise leads the wife to share her views on women being evil by nature. When the husband stubbornly opposes her views and tries to convince her of the opposite, the wife becomes upset and forces the husband to make love in order to escape the current situation. During the act, she begs the husband to hit her, but when he doesn't, she runs out in the wild and starts pleasing herself under the tree she once feared. Left with no choice, the husband goes after her and does what she had asked for. The next day, the husband reopens last night's conversation and convinces his wife that genocide is ridiculously bad. He also realizes that he was misdiagnosing the wife's anxiety, whereas the wife is purely evil, evil enough to go against human nature. Disturbed by the revelation, he decides to end his psychotherapy. The following day, the wife finds Nick's autopsy report in the trash. She complains to the husband about autopsy conduction on her dead son without her knowing. The husband apologizes to her and reminds her she was too unstable to be bothered and told about the autopsy. Besides, he didn't want to interrupt the therapy sessions by bringing out the reports. The wife hesitantly asks about the report's results. Lying about the report, he states that the autopsy hasn't reported anything unusual in Nick's body. Later, when the husband reads the report to himself once again, it is revealed that the autopsy reports a foot deformity in Nick. This leads the husband to look at Nick's old pictures from last summer. Upon noticing the pictures closely, the husband spots that Nick's boots were purposely worn the wrong way. Hence, he gets convinced that his wife had been purposefully messing with Nick's shoes to cause him pain, which also led to the deformity in his feet. Mentally collapsing, he finally shows the pictures to the wife and confronts everything. She makes up a lie and tells the husband that she must have done that unintentionally. However, the husband doesn't buy her lies and runs to the woodshed. Misjudging the situation, the wife goes after him to verbally violate the husband and accuse him of leaving her. The husband tries to justify himself, but the wife comes onto him strong and tries to make out with him in order to escape reality. The husband pushes her off when she becomes too aggressive. The wife comes into her revenge mode and smacks him with a woodblock. When the husband faints, she pierces one of his legs with a heavy grindstone and uses a wrench to tighten the screws on both sides of the pierced leg. After this heinous act, the wife throws the wrench under the cabin and forgets about it. Moments later, the husband wakes up to the monstrosity done to him by his wife. He shrieks in pain while approaching the toolbox, only to find the wrench missing. Out of options, the husband drags himself out of the woodshed. As he makes it to the foxhole, the wife decides to check up on the husband. When she doesn't find the husband where she left him, she starts looking for him in the wild, leading the husband to hide in a foxhole for his safety. There, he finds an injured crow, which is the projection of the third beggar, despair. When the injured crow loudly caws, the wife traces it and finds her husband in the foxhole. The husband strangles the injured crow with his bare hands to silence it, but the wife hears the cause anyway. When she finds the husband in the foxhole, she closes it and buries the husband inside. She feels guilty at night and digs the foxhole to retrieve her husband, who is luckily alive. The forgetful wife runs to the woodshed to grab the wrench, not remembering she had thrown it under the cabin. Helpless, she drags the husband back to the cabin. There she goes on a guilt trip when she gets a flashback of watching Nick jump through the window and do nothing to prevent him. She holds herself accountable for her sins and chops off her lady bits using scissors. As she walks out of the cabin, the husband is greeted with the 3 beggars, Doe, Fox, and a crow, who help him locate the wrench from under the cabin. The wife comes back to strike another attack, but the husband succeeds in unscrewing the grindstone from his leg and strangling the wife to death. In the end, he sets her body on fire and embarks on his own journey. Hope you liked the story recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Thank you for being a part of Black's Movie Recaps. If these tales of mystery and intrigue sent shivers down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Black's Movie Recap for more bone-chilling narratives. Stay tuned, and until next time, stay captivated.